engineer to an architect. He knows the tech quite well. But now he finds that he needs to talk to management about their technology needs. But he feels like they don't necessarily trust him. They treat him like he doesn't know what he's talking about. Diane, the IT director, suggests that Andrew needs to learn how to better document and present to management. Andrew feels discouraged. He knows the tech very well, but that just isn't enough anymore. Should he resign? Go back to being an engineer? I have been there. It took several years of hardship before I finally unlocked the methods that I use today. The good news is, Andrew can learn them in less than 1 month and save years of trial and error. Now, Andrew is presenting in front of management, even the CEO. Don't tell him now, but soon he'll be offered a position at a vendor. Way to go, Andrew. You can do the same. Learn how to assess, present, and document so that the tech skills you've spent years developing shine. Hey everyone, welcome back to another Office Hours. Doing this all week, having some fun, doing some little kind of impromptu coaching. So yeah, hopefully you're able to join with me here and we'll talk more and more. And actually, hopefully my microphone is actually working today. I had some weird issues yesterday. I think I figured it out. But basically what it looks like is that there's a little button that I pressed to get rid of my video, and it actually got rid of my audio too. So we'll try again today and see how this goes. And yeah. All right, so let's get started. So for those of you that don't know, my name is DJ Eshelman. I am a multi-year technologist, advocate, and consultant, and now coach and instructor, or I guess you could say is the way to say that. But anyway, so the concept here is that I'm kind of bringing you into my house a little bit. Somebody asked me this the other day. Yes, this is my office upstairs, in my house. So that's why you have the chaos back there. We should just there you go. Hide a little bit of the chaos. It's all good. So a little background here. So if you don't know, I have been in the technology world for a long time. I'm mostly known for my work with Citrix and Citrix Consulting. And I've been an independent business owner for a long time now. I would say, actually, the funny thing is I was thinking about this the other day, that I've worked for myself more than I've worked for others in my entire lifetime. It's kind of wild to think of it that way, but that's been something that is real for me. So I have a kind of a lot of interesting perspectives, not only from my own career journey, but because I've spent so long in consulting and working with other IT teams, I've been seeing how their journeys go and how they progress and how things kind of work and don't work in a lot of those ways. And so a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today, just FYI, is actually if you wanted to grab your copy of Just This and follow, you don't have a copy of Just Do This? We'll talk about that in a moment. So there are in a chapter, if I can remember where I'm at here. I know my own book, I swear. In chapter 26, there's a lot of talk about basically all the different roles that tend to be out there in the technology world. So what I wanted to do today was go over some of these and look at how these all work in terms of a career standpoint, not necessarily like the ins and outs of how they all work, but basically what I've seen most in the world out there. And so what tends to happen is you will have information technology support teams that fall into usually one of four kind of tiers when it comes to the support mechanism that's there for a company. And this, when I say IT services in this regards, what I'm typically referring to are the people that administrate the computers, the servers, all the things that are going on within a company to help it run, right? And so you might have various components of that. You might have um, things like, oh, I'm general here, but you have like file services, and you have things that are like databases and things like that. You have point solutions like medical software and things like that. A lot of times, or manufacturing has a lot of different types of one-off software and things like that. These ERM packages and all these kind of things that all really have to be administered and maintained. And when there's trouble, somebody needs to respond to that to keep the business running, right? And so that really is what we're talking about here. So we're talking about those various things and how they work together and how they're supported. And so when it comes to that, yesterday I talked about my overall methodology, which is really more for the overall projects themselves, that sort of thing. But what if you're in that maintain space? What if you are in that mode of like where we have a wow, all about the ums and the ahs and the all that kind of stuff today. Sorry about that. What if you are in the space of maintain where you have steady state established? You have a project that previously took place that you are now done. Essentially, you are running and trying to maintain a steady state. But what if a problem arises? Does it mean you have to go through that process all over again? Well, not always. Sometimes it is just something as simple as fixing something, or sometimes somebody just needs a password reset, or sometimes there are things that are more complicated that need to be figured out, and determining whether or not you need to reactivate the project management sequence there and go back to understand, plan, and change to get back to a steady state of maintain for everybody. Or maybe it just is a kind of a point solution kind of a thing where it's just for a few people. These are the kind of things that come up, and that's why I tried to address them as best as I could in the book. Although, to be honest with you, sometimes I think this might merit a completely separate book. And if there's enough asks out there, you can contact me separately on that. But I might do that one of these days. But so basically, what it tends to involve, it tends to involve four different spaces within the organization. I just realized one of my lights went off. Oops. Sorry. So you're getting the shadow today. So I can fix that. Nope. Oh. Yep. Live, folks. That's a little better, huh? Okay. Yay. All right. So what at that in post, right? It's the joy of being live. All right. So back to it. As far as the four tiers. So what tends to happen is it kind of operates in a escalation path. So the way I like to think of this is if you go to the emergency room, right? You are triaged, right? So you have someone who does an intake and figures out what's going on with you. And so they'll ask you what your symptoms are, and they'll kind of try and identify if you are in immediate peril or kind of the priority, if you will, of your ailment, and determine if they need to bring you into the back right away or if it can wait. And so that is that triage concept. It was kind of most well known, I think, in the Civil War of the United States, if I recall correctly. That's kind of where the concept really took off. Whether it was invented there or not, who's to say, right? That's always a point of conjecture, but that's really where where it came practical the most, apparently. So there's that. But so the idea here is that you do a similar thing within information technology. When somebody has an issue, you say, okay, well, how much impact is this making? What is the nature of the issue? Tell me more. And then what'll happen with that case, it depends on the company. Sometimes the first person you talk to will try and resolve that issue. And so sometimes that'll be the case. Many times it is one of those things where it's like they're just gathering all the information. They're getting into the triage and then they're going to have someone else take over that's going to actually do some initial troubleshooting with you, but they're routing it to the right person that they think will be able to best serve your interest in that. And so what tends to happen here is that first level is often called a service desk or a help desk. And so whether it's a phone conversation or you're chatting online or you are doing some other mechanism, doesn't matter what mechanism, but the reality is you're talking to someone at some point, or I think AI is kind of, there's some purposes for AI here. I saw a demo last month of a company that is doing some fantastic things in this space with AI, and in some ways it's actually better because the problem becomes if somebody gives you a bunch of things to troubleshoot, sometimes that can overwhelm us and we don't know how to route it. And so this can be something where there's some uses of AI. Actually may actually become a convert one of these days. But the bottom line is that someone has to determine if you need more help or they can help you right away, what that looks like. And so what you tend to have is an entry level position. This is where I think most of us in information technology got our start, was working at a service desk of some sort. I myself was kind of a blended kind of a thing. My first role in a true IT team was in something like that. But actually, I had been already in my career for quite a while at that point. So it was a little bit different for me. But as far as my growth in my career, yes, that was actually one of the first things that I actually did, was to take on a role where I was taking incoming calls and determining either a course of action or if I needed to escalate it. So when somebody is able to do a first call resolution kind of a thing, we usually refer to them as subject matter experts of some sort. So if the call is immediately routed to somebody because you know what the issue is and you're not going through a menu of things, or maybe you go through a menu and select, hey, I'm having a problem with my email. And so it goes directly to the people that are subject matter experts in email. Now, for most organizations, that is kind of like a tier 1.5 is to have an actual subject matter expert. And that's a lot of times what you'll have is the people that are kind of that level 1, level 2, 2.5, 3. It depends on how it's done. The more I think about it, I have seen this in multiple different ways. But basically what it is somebody who has been on the initial service desk typically and has grown into the point of saying, you know what, I want to know more about this technology. And so they become a subject matter expert in that, or sometimes multiple subject matter expert, or the areas where they're subject matter expert. It depends on the person, depends on the team, but that is an area where you can start having that initial bit of growth into that, of saying, okay, I want to learn more about how this works so I can then help troubleshoot that and get into that with people, that sort of thing. So interestingly enough, it's a common misconception that is a dead end. That's not always true. Actually, the funny thing about this is a lot of subject matter experts in a service desk can actually become more of a senior supervisory kind of a role. And so if you are more into that side of wanting to get into a management role, the funny thing is the management path for someone out of the service desk is actually faster than a lot of people. Sometimes you might instead want to go a different path with that and focus on the technical. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. But the interesting thing that I find about people that have been through the service desk and are interested in dealing with the people aspect of things, where they find they enjoy working with people. The funny thing about that is that's actually a fast track towards more of an architect role. And a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people think that it's just a technical thing with architects. But the really qualified and really good architects out there are actually people persons, if you like, whatever. That's the reality of who they are. They enjoy interacting with people to get solutions made. And so it turns out that even from the service desk, you can set yourself on a pathway towards that success, which is fantastic. I love that. Now, from the technical side of things, a lot of times what happens next is you have people that are in that tier 2 area. And those tend to be the people that are now taking on systems administration. So let's say that there's a request that comes in through the help desk or the service desk that really is just more of an administrative task. Resetting a password, resetting a profile, making a entry into the database of some sort. These are the kind of things that having someone with at the help desk level really wouldn't be appropriate for them to have that level of system access to be able to do that. And so what happens is that is handed off then to somebody who is an administrator. And systems administration is probably one of the most common titles in information technology. And so what I find out there, and this varies from organization to organization, it depends on the size. A lot of them will have various kind of tiers within that too. And that'll be true a lot. Actually, it's funny. I've noticed this distinction with a lot of publicly traded companies. Actually, they'll tend to have 3 tiers within a structure. So it'll be staff, senior, principal, right? Those tend to be the 3 kind of levels of access, responsibility, and usually pay that is associated with that. And it's usually most prevalent at the administration level. And so you will have somebody who is maybe a staff system engineer, or sometimes they're just called, administrator. A lot of times they're just called systems administrators. And a lot of times what will happen with that is they'll be declared into a specialty. So if they are an Active Directory system administrator, they will be people that are responsible for doing things like setting up accounts and resetting passwords and things like that at a low level of access, but just enough access to be able to help people. Interestingly enough, when it comes to access level, I should say this really quick. There was recently a pretty major breach at a certain casino and resort system in Las Vegas. That it turns out, if the system administrator had been paying better attention and had gone through their processes, then that breach would have never actually occurred. And so there is some responsibility that has to happen here. It's a concept that I love in Jocko Willnick's book, Extreme Ownership, that everybody needs to have a sense of ownership of the things that are going on in the organization. They need to have that. And that includes, especially nowadays, the people that are system administrators, so they can be very protective of things like that. So just a side note that with that is that this is a kind of that where it becomes really important. If they have any kind of administrative access to the system, that ownership becomes really important. And that honestly is where you can kind of start to excel in that. And so they have there's various tasks that are done with that, but a lot of times there are things that require either more access, more experience, or sometimes just more time with the company. And that's where you tend to have more of a senior system administrator. And this can vary from organization to organization, but what tends to happen with senior system administrators is they're given more responsibilities, and sometimes they're actually given kind of like a lead role within some implementation tasks that are either regular kind of stuff, right, care and feeding. Sometimes it is when the troubleshooting needs to come in and you need someone with the experience. A lot of times that'll be just directed directly to a senior systems administrator. But that can vary from company to company. And I'll talk a little bit about systems engineering here in a second. But a lot of times, systems administrators as title will include those kind of roles. It's frustrating for me to see that, but honestly, if you're doing engineering work, you should be doing engineering work. So as far as my methodology goes, when the maintain part of this really is where system administrators are really key. They're the ones that will tend to do things like manage backups, or senior systems administrators. They'll do like manage backups. They'll do things like, I'm thinking about just not just run book tasks things, but they'll actually have to know what's going on. They're beyond a subject matter expert in specific area, and so they can speak definitively to how things should work. And they're the ones that tend to be cognizant enough to identify issues and escalate them up to the engineering or architect teams as a point of escalation. So a lot of times there is one of those things too, where senior system administrators are often tasked with training subject matter experts in the service desk. And again, I'm not saying this is like a standard for all people or whatever. This is where, you know, most people lay. So when it comes to pathways within that, what I tend to find is that those that are just really good at the kind of that troubleshooting kind of mindset of like figuring things out, that tends to be a pathway towards being a systems engineer, which we're going to talk about next in the tier 3. So when it comes to identifying things about yourself, and if you're a good candidate for being an engineer, if you like to tinker with things and you're not afraid to kind of in a controlled environment break something to learn more about it, then you're a good engineer. If you are someone who so that's that. So there's other pathways too, though, that I find, and that's sometimes really within project management tends to come out of a lot of people that are either systems engineer, oh my gosh, system administrators or senior system administrators that are interested in the process of getting to that maintained state, and they want to help with the overall procedures, the way things should be done, kind of a designing a support kind of a thing. And so they actually have a good pathway towards project management. And then again, there are some people that really just understand the way systems work and how people work within systems and how to do things like allocate effort accordingly and do like support triage, I guess you could say, and also just on-call staffing, things like that are just good at knowing how that all works together. And those tend to be fast-tracked into management. And so it's kind of like one of those things where I've seen, actually, I would say in my career, I've seen a lot of frustration with people, a lot of that. Yesterday, I talked about the crab bucket problem. You know, the whole, if somebody's trying to get out of the crab bucket, the other crabs will grab them and bring them back down. This what I'm about to tell you is a big challenge with a lot of that, because what will happen is a lot of people think that to get into management, you have to go through this weird cycle of being an engineer first, and then go into being a architect, and then you get promoted to management or something like that. Well, that's just horrible. If that happens, you usually have bad managers. But what tends to happen is somebody that's in systems administration is interested enough in what's going on as a whole and not as interested in learning the very specific aspects of things, but they like seeing how the business and the technology work together. And they like seeing how people and systems work together. And those are the kind of people that are great candidates to being gone from systems administration directly into management. And again, that can cause some animosity with people sometimes, because a lot of times this happens when people are only in the systems administration, or sometimes even the service desk, for a short amount of time, and are then promoted to manage their peers that have been in engineering for sometimes more than a decade. It's important to realize that when it comes to your IT career, one of the biggest things you can do for yourself is to recognize the areas you're most passionate about and only do those things. Where you are, where your position is, can always change. And honestly, people think that the management makes more from a compensation standpoint. I remember when I was first doing consulting work or out in the field, consulting work, I should say. And I don't know how I was exposed to this information, but I realized very early on that the person I was talking to, the IT manager that I was talking to, oddly enough, of a relatively large company, I would say maybe Fortune 1000 sized company, realized that this manager I was talking to that managed something to the order of 30 or 40 people was making far less than I was. In fact, this person was making almost as much as I was when I first started consulting work. And so even a couple of years in, you know, I was making more than that manager. In fact, what I found out was that some of the engineers on his staff were actually making more than he was. And so it's not about the money. It's about doing the things that you're gifted for and passionate about, and willing to get those talents into actual passions. Something I might talk about later this week. I might get into that. That's something I want people to grasp. So the reality is that sometimes you have these different pathways that don't make a lot of sense. And in the coming weeks and months, Thrive IT is going to be doing some things with that. I'm going to be doing some things with it as well, just to kind of start getting some direction for people. And I'm excited about this. I'm excited to put this all together. It's gonna be a lot of work, but I think it's going to be something that will be really valuable for you as a resource. So yeah, look for that more later. But really quick, in tier three, okay, so tier three is where you have in terms of escalation, what you'll have is the problems that just really need attention, as far as you might need to be making some quick changes or something like that, or that really just is something where you need to interface with a vendor to figure out, sort of thing. These are where it tends to be escalated to tier three to manage that. And this tends to be where you have three, sometimes even four levels of engineering. So you'll have the systems engineers that tend to be the people that are, I don't want to say grunts as far as that goes, but they tend to be, when it comes to doing the work here, they tend to be the ones that implement more than make any kind of like potential changes that are in development, that sort of thing. They tend to be the ones that are implementing things. And so this is where I see a lot of people that are in kind of that scripting and programming area getting into this, and also into senior systems administrators as well. Those that are good at like identifying and optimizing processes. I see both, but honestly, when it comes to optimizing processes, that tends to be more of a engineering thing than anything else, because you're inventing something that is going to be making things more efficient without necessarily changing the design. You're actually just trying to speed things up. And so a lot of these will be folks that are managing. Actually, I think one of the most common things that I see with changing in the last few years is the people that are maintaining the PCs, laptops, virtual desktops. That tends to be very system engineer heavy. So you'll see that a lot, where that's very much the people that are installing applications and things like that, that are not really design oriented work, and they're not really the kind of work where you're having to try and figure things out. You're just implementing something else that's already been figured out, and you're the one doing the implementation work of it. And the funny thing is, my tone sounded somewhat derogatory there, and I apologize that for in advance, because I know a lot of people that really, really genuinely enjoy that. There are people out there that really just like to know that they are just there to just punch some things out, get it out into production, and then they go home and they don't worry about anything. That is great. I mean, that's I actually envy that. Is the truth of that, as I actually envy people that are in that kind of a position where they will, um, yeah, be that fluid in their way of operating. But the senior engineers, senior systems engineers, that's a mouthful, tend to be those that are taking a design. Hopefully, there's a design. We'll get into that in a moment. But they are taking a need and saying, okay, let's do some initial implementation here and see if anything needs to be adjusted. And so, if you're following along from the methodology from yesterday, which hopefully you were, if not, there's no shortage of resources on my end for looking at this. But for those of you playing along at home, you have the plan and then change methodology before, or phases before you get into the maintain, right? So engineers tend to be right in that change side of things, but system engineers will sometimes be involved in the plan process as well. They'll sometimes be the people that are actually implementing like a proof of concept or something where it's just a development work or something along those lines. Um, and so there's a lot of things that they're doing to not necessarily always user facing kind of things. They're challenging the status quo, and this is a bit of a personality trait that tends to be there with successful systems administrators, because what they will want to do is basically break stuff. And as somebody who is more of an architect, I can tell you that there are a lot of frustrations with those people. But at the same time, I'm thankful for them, because they're the ones that, when something isn't quite right, they will figure out what needs to change. Now, it gets frustrating when they do it on their own and they just kind of just cowboy it. But for those that are actually good in that role, they will actually say, you know what, we need to make this adjustment to the design because of this, and they are often a point of that tier 3 escalation for that reason. It's like, okay, something is wrong here and it needs to change, and so let's go back to our design process, our plan, and actually make that formalized so we can start testing that for everybody. And as you can guess, a lot of times they are also involved in working with the user acceptance testing group. And I should put this on the screen. So there was a workshop that I did that's accessible until Friday for free. And it's something I really wish more people would go through. It's not just because I want more views or something like that. Honestly, this is something where I'm hoping more people will do, because it is really important to understand how this all works together, and so how to do these kind of things I'm talking about. With when you have something that you need to change, don't just punch it out there in production and hope for the best. Have a system of people. So in this workshop, I talk about how to have a team of folks that are testers, that are regular basis testers. In other words, whenever you have a change, you're putting it in front of them first and saying, is this working properly? Can you validate this sort of thing? And you have a process around that. There's a lot I go to in the book about this, but also even more. I think I'll be expanding this risk workshop, I'm sure, to really get into how that all works out. But honestly, yeah, that's how that tends to work. So I encourage you to go get that workshop while you can, and if not, we'll talk about how to get replays here in just a moment. So they usually are, again, interpreting the design or implementing changes that are like that. But also sometimes they are charged with evaluating new products. So this is where a career path can kind of evolve out of this. Sometimes these senior engineers are often promoted into what's called a principal system engineer. These are not as common, but there is a position here where if things need to be, if you need to interface with vendors, if you need to be more of a consultant, actually, this is actually where things get a little bit skewed a little bit, where a lot of times you'll have contract engineers or consulting engineers that are not necessarily doing design work, but they are super challenging that status quo and saying, okay, we have a need to respond to this need, and we don't have the ability to make a design for this yet. And so sometimes the architects will actually, or consultants, whatever, will work with a senior systems engineer, but more commonly a principal systems engineer, to work out a solution. And so these are people that are very solution focused, very much not in the, I'm not even sure how to classify the type, but basically they're always accepting that there could be more, that there is another way to do this. And so that is kind of their notion, is that. So this can lead to a bunch of different pathways, actually. One of which is right out of that notion of challenging things. This is where a lot of times people will be recruited out of organizations to vendors to work as sales engineers. And sales engineering has gone through a lot of iterations over the years. It's actually one of the the oldest of the professions, and something that some of my colleagues at Thrive IT are actually working on some resources for. So I'm excited about all that. Is like getting that whole process. It might have different names these days, but basically the concept is that a sales engineer is part of a pre-sales process where a lot of times they are doing things like putting a product in front of a customer and using doing a proof of concept, or having these technical conversations, or having these use case conversations, and really identifying if there's like a good need here. So it's not a sales person. They're part of the sales process, which is a very different thing. And a lot of times we get very hostile towards sales. And trust me, I know all about this. In fact, I'm doing a sale right now, and trust me, it makes me kind of sick to my stomach even doing the sale sometimes. It's just not within me to be doing that sort of stuff. But sales engineers are recognize that they don't have to do the deal and the things like that. They're just focused on the relationship. They're just focused on getting people excited about what they're doing. They're more advocates than anything else. But most importantly, they're trusted advisors. And so they are a little bit more people. Obviously, they're not like sitting in a basement somewhere just tinkering with stuff. They are the people that are actually out there. So in other words, if you have the willingness to, and the desire to work with people, and you have a desire to challenge the status quo, going into sales engineering is actually a really good pathway. And you can kind of cut your teeth, as the saying goes, as being a systems engineer, and go into that pathway later, which a good most of my peers in that have done. Some were in systems administration and went directly into sales engineering. That's not uncommon, but most of them that I talked to were in kind of some sort of engineering role before they went into sales engineering. And there's some other pathways too here that that kind of level 2, level 3 can get into. Most of which, I'll be honest with you, the people that are really technical and like to specialize in a specific technology will tend to be promoted into either a kind of that level 3 engineer, or sometimes will be asked to be an architect. I started this video with one of the courses that I developed that helps these kind of people that are engineers to become architects. And so that is the one of my signature courses that helps understand the roles within that. And I'll talk about that next. But oftentimes that is an area there. Other times you'll have people that are more in that management kind of role, but they are still very technical in nature. And they tend to be your lead engineers, or the people that are principals are often in this regard too. Sometimes they'll be called project leads. But basically you have people at that tier that are charged with just like, in the possibility with the administrators, where sometimes you'll have people that are basically like a lead administrator, and I forgot to mention that, I think, but you'll have people that are just basically in charge of a small team, but sometimes you're just working right alongside them. I love this concept because it's something that John Maxwell talks about leading from the side. In other words, you're not leading from the front. You're one of the team, and you're just charged with kind of handing out assignments and making sure everybody's okay and making sure everything's moving forward. And so if you have that kind of project management style about you, but you don't want to go into full project management, then being a lead engineer is actually a good thing to shoot for, because you can actually just kind of interface with the project managers without having to actually be one. And interestingly enough, again, to talk about the pay thing, a lot of times these level 3 lead principal engineers are a lot of times making a lot of money. If you are in software development, especially lead software engineers, sometimes will command upwards of 300,000 or more. It is a real thing. So there's something to being really dialed into your passions. And sometimes with these particular folks, the demand might be heavy, and there might be a lot of responsibility and a lot of pressure. But if you can take it, then a lot of times there are rewards financially. So that can be a thing. Um, in the book, I talk a little bit about consulting, and I think they tend to follow similar roles. But what I tend to see is consultants are either in that kind of engineering implementation side of things, where they're basically contract engineers, or sometimes they're called consulting engineers, where they're doing the work that's prescribed uh, by an architect to another company, or to on behalf of a company, I should say, or something similar. And honestly, that actually was a big part of how my career started, was as basically a contract engineer. I think the name of the site was dice.com or something like that. I can't remember what that was called, but I would just go on there and find a gig. And that's kind of like one of the things I started. And actually, I believe it was either that or something else that got me hooked up with a company that was servicing the time Kinkos. And my role became one of the people that was going around all throughout the country deploying these credit card systems. Yeah. So let's get into architect. And this is where a lot of my technical audience, again, this tends to be like the thing they want to go towards. And back in 2007, I remember where I was. I was in my backyard pacing around on the phone with somebody, and really made a goal of, I want to be an architect in 5 years. I did it in 2, basically, but let's get into that later. But basically, the architect is someone who is a technical authority in a certain focus area, and so they know how things should work, but they're also willing to challenge certain things and make a design, if you will, out of use cases. And this is the key here. So you are essentially, from a technical standpoint, a leader. You're not someone who is just following orders at that point. You're the person that's actually creating what's going to happen out of this. And so architects tend to be a special breed, because there's a level of politics within a company that has to happen here. So there tend to be people that are much more in the space of needing to work on a solution that'll work for everyone. And so a lot of engineers will sometimes just do their thing, and if it breaks, they'll just say, hey, it's this person's fault, and they'll just move on. An architect will tend to be someone who wants to avoid that at all costs, and so they will work with other architects and other teams to see, okay, what are our limits here, those kind of things. And so when they, as I mentioned that course earlier, the assessments, presentation, and documentation course, that first phase of the methodology, understand, is where an architect will actually spend the majority of their meaningful time, is in truly assessing an environment, or what's going on, or more importantly, what the needs actually are. And so these are people. A good architect is someone who does not make assumptions. A good architect is someone who is, like I mentioned earlier, very much a people person, likes to talk to people, likes to sit people down in a conference room and say, okay, let's figure out what these use cases are, and let's figure out everything about these users and what they need. They're oftentimes willing to sit with a user and have a day in the life study. These kind of things that are very important. By the way, for your for your sales engineers, another good thing to do: sit with your users and identify what's going on. It's gold. But generally speaking, they're that kind of, you say know-it-all, but honestly, that's kind of a compliment to an architect. They do want to be that authority piece of whatever technology that they're specialized in, or whatever area they're over. Sometimes there can be multiple technologies within that, but they want to be the people that are kind of expertise with that. What I like to see in architects is people that are kind of like those community leaders. And that's a pathway within being an architect. Architects tend to be very well paid because they're dealing with a lot. They tend to have a lot more experience. I tend to see architects being promoted after, tend to be more than 5 years of doing things, and there's just a certain level of experience that happens there. But what I'm not always seeing is that there's the skill sets developed, and that's a lot of why just so you know, that's a lot of why I wrote Just Do This. That's why I make some of the courses that I've been making, is to help people get into that architect role that want to go further. Because as far as the engineering stuff, that tends to be technical courses. When it comes to applied methodology, this is where that leadership and that extreme ownership really comes into play, and that really tends to be more of a architect role. And so that is the reason behind all that. So that is kind of like a pathway there. And from architect, I find that a lot of people will stay with the company and become, you even have various levels, just like I mentioned before. You can have like a staff, a senior, and a principal or a lead. That happens within organizations as well. So you'll have tiers of architects, and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of pathways out of that too. I mean, there are management pathways out of that, but that's more rare. That tends to be more of like, I see a lot of people going into being like directors and things like that that are leadership based. And understand when I say that, I'm not trying to be derogatory. There is a very big difference between leaders and managers. Okay. Leaders tend to be those that set a direction. They're not good at managing people, so they're leaders. And so that's your CIOs, your CTOs, that sort of thing is that pathway. VP of technology, all these kind of pathways come out of that architect level sometimes because they're just good at being leaders. So they're good at inspiring people. I'm good at directing where things should be heading from a direction, hey, I have these needs that I've identified with the users. I have these needs with the business. Let's put all these together and make a bigger solution. That mindset tends to be leadership. Management tends to be, on the other hand, very much maintaining. Most managers are best at resource management, and resource being people, being budget, whatever. They're the people that are charged with that and are really good and passionate about that. Not just accountants, although I will say that actually, now that I've said CIO, it tends to be more of like a management tends to go into CIO, accounting sort of thing. Accounting management tends to go more CIO. It's is a less technical role, but a lot of times they'll have elements of that in it, of awareness anyway. And so that's a thing. That's a thing. So let's get into a little bit of how I'm helping people resolve this. And this is, you saw the QR code up above here, up above my head. If I can point the right way, there we go. If you click that, you will be taken to a page that has a bunch of different things on it. It's like one of those things where it's like, I'm doing this for the next week, or for this week. And let's get into this here. Okay. So what I'm seeing out there in the world is some very real challenges. And I went over this yesterday, but I'll just go over it really quick too. Is that you tend to have career by accident kind of things going on. You don't have really good notions of how these pathways that I've talked about today really occur. It tends to be more of just like the crab bucket problem a little bit, and just the what I call attrition, where you're just waiting for. Thank you. My goodness, where you're waiting for someone else to not be in that role so you can be in that role. Or you're waiting for a role to be created and you're hoping to be the first one there. You're relying on that handout, that sort of thing. And so it's not a good position. A lot of the people that I know that have been good systems engineers have actually been voluntold into that position, where they just said, okay, hey, we're going to be deploying VDI. You need to learn this. Here's this thing called Citrix. You need to learn this. And this is actually probably the most common way that a lot of people learn these fringe technologies or these kind of things is by that kind of thing. It's like we're deploying SCCM. I need somebody to take this on. It's, hey, guess what? I just volunteered you for it. That happens, but there's also the obsession with certifications and things like that, and like I talked about the crab bucket thing a little bit. If you want to review the recording from yesterday, I'll go into more detail about that. But so what I'm doing is kind of fighting back against this and saying, what can I offer that others can't? And I could offer the technology, and I have for years. I've taught technology and I've taught the engineers for years, and I figured out it's time for me to stop doing that. It's time for me to address all these roles and get them all into a place of growth. That's my passion. I really want to be behind, $100 million worth of raises collectively in what I do. I want that to be something that I can kind of say, you know what, I helped make that happen. That's a big part of what I'm doing. That's a measurement. It's not a why necessarily. It's more of a measurement. What I want to see is success. I want to see people getting into roles that they are passionate about. And if you're just focused on just the technology, that's never going to happen. It's just not. I mean, trust me, you will have to at some point learn what people sometimes call soft skills or a methodology or a way to apply this, but also just taking control of your career and getting onto that. And so there are a lot of things that I'm doing to help with that. You'll see these workshops that are happening. Some of these are being extended into courses or also virtual summits. Some other things that I'm talking about as far as books and resources that I'm not even ready to talk about yet, but they're coming. So what I want to do is have a mechanism where, yeah, okay, let me be just completely blunt. This is day 2 of being live, and there are 0 people watching right now. I'm keeping going because I want people to view the replay. It's like an obsession people have with viewing the replay. But honestly, this is not a good mechanism for sharing what I do. So I have to rely on things like email, which frustrates me. In fact, there's an email going out in about an hour that makes me really nervous because I don't like sending these kind of emails, but I want to let people know about it. I want to let people know that this is going on, right? I'm passionate about this. So what I want to do is formulate a system where people can connect together and we're always aware of these things and we're growing together, right? And so really this kind of becomes a very kind of VIP thing where it's just very much like it's a private set aside group. It's not for everyone. It's only for those that are growth minded. I call them thrivers because I want the people that not just, oh, I'm just surviving it until the next thing. I don't want those people. I want people that are focused in on, you know what? I like this technology thing, but I'm thinking maybe I could do something else with this. I could probably grow within this, and they know how to do that. And so everything I mentioned today, and for those of you that are just coming in live or just midstream, you can review this obviously, but the thing is you have all these different pathways. You saw all these different ways then interject your personality into the technology and grow in much different ways. Well, I want to help you with that. And so that's what success lanes are. This is something that I came up with a concept about, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that. And this has been evolving. And so I'm really excited to unveil this in the next coming weeks. And so I want to just, as I was making the slide this morning, I said, this is how as a pro, no matter how fast you go. In other words, the concept is that we have various speeds as which we're achieving things. But if I'm just hitting you over the head with things that are appropriate for a systems engineer and you're a systems administrator and you want to follow that pathway, if I'm always hitting you over the head with those kind of things, you're naturally going to go towards that because that's what you think you should be doing. Well, I want to avoid that and focus on the things that are important for you and your growth goals. Okay. So that's really big. The other thing is being inspired by others that are in that field. So for the last 3 years, we've had this thing called ThriveCast, and we did a lot of interviews with experts and things like that. We did this live, but we're starting to do this in more of a recorded format. And so the people that are in my community, I want to have the ability to say, you know what, do you want to just be in the audience when we're recording? To have a kind of a backstage access is literally what in the system itself, it's called backstage access. And so I can generate a link. And so you can just be in the audience watching the interview happen live and then have the chance to interact with my guests and myself. It's kind of a unique opportunity to not only hear their stories, but actually be able to ask them questions and things like that. So that's a big piece of mentoring, which is something I talked about yesterday. But having access to some coaching that I do. And this will be, I'm kind of playing with this because obviously this coaching is a more of a premium thing. But I want to figure out ways to do this that makes sense. That whether it's working with me one-on-one, as in having like kind of a waiting room kind of a thing, where it's just for the next hour, next few people that come in, I'm work through goals, challenges, whatever, and then pass on to the next person. And then after that, having a group time where we can work through this kind of stuff as a group. In other words, you're not on your own. You're part of a bigger collective, right? So that's pretty big. And of course, what I just mentioned, most commonly the thing that's asked in these kind of things is like, I'm kind of busy right now. Will there be a replay? That's very, very, very much part of what I want to do. So basically, what I want to do is provide a mechanism to where my community always has access to that. That's what I want. I want to have no questions asked. It's like, if you're part of the community, you get this. But I'm going to be a little stingy. I'm going to say, and this is already true. This is already true of my workshops, that if you want replay access, I'll give it to you for a couple of days, but then I'm pulling it back and I'm only giving the people that are working with me permanent access to those replays. And we're going further with that. Actually, we're making those into courses on their own and sort of thing, enhancing those. So it's not just a 3-hour kind of thing or an hour long like this. It is more of just bite-sized pieces. And we're doing that work. And we're making it into better and better of a product, I guess you could say, but it fits with those various success lanes. Very important. So here's what is going to be offered here. So yeah, you have the workshop replays, all those kind of things. And they have various values, but generally speaking, this is what I see industry wide, and that's kind of why I've just assigned these values to them. But there's this backstage access thing that I just talked about. How do you put a value on that? I have no idea. I don't know how, it's a priceless kind of a thing, and so it's just basically a perk. So what I'm doing again is formulating a online community. I'm not talking about like just a Slack channel. What I'm talking about is a way you can do life together, and you can not just like have some thread of troubleshooting X problem. I'm leaving that to the vendors to do their communities. I'm talking more of like a neighborhood of like-minded people. I want to do life together. I want to have the ability for us to address each other's challenges and say, have you considered doing this? Or even some cases being, able to vent a little bit and say, gosh, this is frustrating me. That kind of thing is huge. Now, eventually, I'm going to be offering that for probably around $100 a month. It'll probably not launch at that price. I like giving discounts for people that are in early, but that's probably about what it'll be. And honestly, the when I'm talking about the group coaching thing, this is something where that becomes one of those things where it's like, it's hard to just put a value to it, but what tends to be, I'll just use again, kind of industry values with some of the things, the programs that I belong to, for example, tends to be about $250. This also is the same cost that I was paying for a weekly visit with an online therapist. BetterHelp, I got your back. Yeah, that was about that price. And so this is kind of a similar kind of notion to me. And so I'm like, okay, well, this is probably a good price point. But I'm not going to be offering it unless you are part of another program. And so that's the way that's going to work. Just because I don't, it's hard to do a group coaching, regular kind of mastermind kind of a thing without people that are going to be consistent. So it's going to be a big thing. But this is a big event, right? So we're doing more. We're going to be doing more. So access to all of my materials. This is like just opening up the archives, not only as they sit right now, but also some additional stuff that's going on. So if you are in the tech space and in the Citrix space especially, I've got resources for that. We've made them, in fact, I'm thinking about even doing an update. So when I do those updates, you would get access to those if you want them. If you're not in the Citrix space, no big deal. No big deal. Just Do This is a book for everybody in technology. In fact, I'm probably going to be adapting the methodology to more things like sales and project management in general, and even entrepreneurship. Look for more coming over the years with Just Do This. It's a bigger deal. But right now I'm working on that time. Make the time. I am working on a novel, and in this novel, it will be centered around a technology group at Healthy Hospital. Fictional, don't freak out. But I'm thinking it take place here in Nashville, so I can get some realism here. I want this to be gritty and realistic as a story. I want this to grip you, and I want to get into the drama of information technology and really get into the pain points that I've been seeing out there in the industry and conversations I've had, and really get into these stories and tell them in a safe way where it's this environment going through that. Well, that means that I have now a playground for a lot of different things. And one of the projects along with this is going to be introducing that team to these concepts. In fact, one of the guides in the book, every hero story should have a guide, and this one is called. His name is Jay, and he is a coach that comes in and helps them adopt a methodology. Spoiler alert: my methodology, my book. I want to do it this way. So but it's going to guide through that process. Well, there's a lot of things that are detail oriented in that I figured out really don't make sense to have in the book. And so I'm actually going to be pulling those out of the book and putting them into a video bonus course. And so I'm going to be enhancing the normal bonus course with an upgrade option. If you want to go deeper, there's going to be a way to go through that, and kind of like maybe not a certification process, but kind of like a knowledge assertion kind of a process along with that. And so that'll be a premium that I'm doing, along with taking that same storyline that's just been applied to the book and applying that into things like the assessment, presentation, and documentation course I was just talking about. So making of this where we're actually working through a story. And so instead of just being here's how you do things, it'll now be here's how I work through this as a story, which I think is going to be super powerful, worth the time for me to do this. But obviously it's a lot of time, so it's going to be a lot of expense, but I think it's going to be worth it in the end. And so the next thing we're doing with that, same kind of vein, is doing this in some of the other premium smaller courses like the IT Documentation Advanced class. Just did the workshop on this last month. This is going to be massively expanded to walk through a scenario. We're actually going to walk through a design scenario. So once we've done the assessment and presented to management and done some risks and recommendations, documentation, and working through all that, the natural advancement of that is going into the design portion of this, which is kind of be straddling that line between the architect in the understand and plan phase and the going into the change phase with the engineers to bring that conversation full circle. So I know this is stressful as a get point DJ. I'm not good at sales. I'm just not. So what I'm doing is I'm just throwing everything into a bundle and just making this work the way I think will probably work the best. And so what this is going to look like is all the stuff I've talked about. And I think, by the way, with the online VIP community, what's most likely going to happen here is in a couple of months, I'm going to make this into a monthly a charge that kind of locks in an initial rate of $29 per month, and that will just be a locked in rate. But when we go on full launch, it'll probably be more like $99. It's kind of my target for that value. So honestly, there's things like the group coaching that'll be either an add-on or that, or we might even figure out some ways to just make it work. We'll see. It just really kind of depends. And then you have all the value of the existing courses. But then again, like I said, I'm actually enhancing a lot of these with version 2s that a lot more work, it's a lot more intense, and I think it's going to reach a lot more people, but it's going to have some expenses to it. So that means that those are going to go up in price. It's just the reality of this. And so from an estimated value, this is my initial estimate. I think this will all be increasing in the next few months, just because there's this thing called inflation out there. So this is the total value price. And so the idea is to take this and work with this. And so what I'm introducing is kind of a way to bundle all this together. And I'm doing so by launching the Thrive IT Backstage VIP founding member launch. In other words, when you sign up for this program, you're going to get everything that I just talked about as a bonus. And so you'll get permanent access to the VIP. In other words, for as long as it's up there, you're going to have access without having to pay anything more every month like everyone else is going to have to. And so that's kind of the benefit there. But it's not going to be $6,398 to be a founding member. I figured this out. So what I initially thought about doing is saying, well, let's just make this so that you just buy one gear and you get the rest, right? So I figured out like the price I'm going to have it eventually is It's about $1,188 for a year. So maybe I'll just make that the price for the founding member launch. So it includes a bunch of bonuses. It's a big deal, right? It says that'd be a great deal, but that wasn't good enough. I didn't want to do that. So what I figured out was a good price point for this to offer you for this week only. Friday, this goes away, but your price to be a Thrive IT Backstage VIP founding member for life is $499. That's 92% off. Now, I'm going to go on here in a minute for those of you that are in the Citrix space and things like that, or it's not just Citrix. It doesn't matter what VDI or end user computing technology you have. I have something for you. Stay tuned for that if you're very excited about this. But what I want to say right now is if you are at all interested in the things I was talking about in the call today, if you are at all interested in getting to the place of saying, you know what, I know where I'm going in my career. You know, I have a pathway. I have people that are around me supporting me. I don't have people around me that are just asking for troubleshooting advice. I don't have just people that are just looking for the next thing or to get something out of me. But I have people around me that are wanting to contribute the same way I'm contributing with them. Do this right now. Go to thrive-it.com/4DFC23 or the QR code that's right up there on the screen. Do it. Go for this. Do not back off on this. I'll tell you why this is important. I'm sore today. I am. I pushed myself at the gym. Would you like to know how much my membership for the gym costs me every month? Zero every month. It costs me $49 a year, in fact, to be part of my gym. Now, why is this? What's special about me? Well, when they were just starting and just opening the location that I'm at, they used to be a Dollar General. A Dollar General actually closed, y'all. I couldn't believe it. If you live in the South, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They expand. It's like a virus. You know, there's a Dollar General virus. You know, I've literally seen like across the street from each other. They spread faster than Starbucks. But one of them closed, and a gym started in this location. Well, it's a hard time to open, right? It was just the tail end of that, you know, the unspecified virus of unknown origin. And so it's a hard time. So they needed startup capital. They needed money to get started. So what did they do? They put out an offer to everybody and said, okay, you know what? If you get in now, we will lock in your rates at $19 a month for the rest of your life. That rate will not change. It'll be that. And the funny thing is, that's what I just talked about doing with the founding member launch. When that becomes kind of the opening, the initial offering with that, that's what it'll look like, is a highly discounted monthly rate that gets locked in. But when I went to the website, I found something different that they weren't necessarily advertising. This is just a very, very short time frame kind of thing. If you're willing to invest $498 one time, they would give you, when the gym opened, which was several months later, by the way. It was a while. This is something that's called muddy boots pricing. A lot of times you'll have, when you move into a neighborhood that's being developed and you're one of the first houses there, they'll oftentimes give you a discount because there'll be so much construction going on. And so it's called muddy boots pricing because of that. So this is a similar kind of a concept where they were getting the capital together to buy all the equipment that's needed to open a gym, right? And so this was part of that kind of limited time offer to say, you know, just for the next, I think it was like a month and a half or something like that. If you get in as a founding member, you can have access for the rest of your life for like $498 or whatever it was. Not only to the gym, but to a premium membership within the gym. It was access to all their massage tables, all the sauna, all the tanning beds, all that kind of stuff that's normally an upgrade for people. I get that as well. And so they're really just saying, you know what, if you're willing to invest and do this initial offering, we're going to give you value way beyond that. I can't even calculate how much over my lifetime I'm going to save with this. And I say lifetime because this is a company. In other words, I don't get access just to my gym. I get access to all the workout anytime 24/7 locations at that same premium level because I invested in this one location. That is what I wanted to do for you. I wanted to give you something that if you're willing to take a little bit of those muddy boots and say, you know what, this is going to be a little rough initially, this is for you. So I encourage you to do it. Now, there's some things that I'm doing here too that I want to put people at ease. And if you're a little on the fence, you're not sure, my encouragement is to get into this and let's see how we do. And I'm going to let you, if within 30 days or so, this isn't for you, just let me know. Just let me know. We'll refund you and we'll be good to go. It costs me money to do that, but I'm going to be yeah, I'm gonna be willing to do that because I'm just modeling what I see working, and more importantly, modeling what I see in my life that I've appreciated. So for me, I like going to the gym because I know I got this deal. Am I ever gonna go to another gym? I seriously doubt it. Even though they're like not the flashiest, they don't have like any pools or like weird, weird workout classes or whatever. It's just a gym, but that suits me, right? And so oh yeah, I can actually I'm not ashamed here. I can show you that the things are working a little bit. This was down to here before, so we're making progress, you know. So I encourage you right now to just go do this. If you have questions for me at any point, just let me know. Just let me know, and we'll get those answered. I don't want to leave anybody out with this, but at the same time, obviously, I can't keep this up. I can't do this beyond this week. That would be silly. 92% off. Come on, that's not something you can do for an extended point in time because it would basically just make everything you're doing not worth what it's actually worth. The other thing, just a little behind the scenes here, is that I am probably not going to be doing much in terms of like this marketing and sales to individuals anymore. I'm going to be focused mostly on corporations, on vendors, on services partners. I'm really going to be focusing on those folks going forward. So when it comes to that, one of the things you can help with me, in fact, I should have mentioned this, one of the terms for participating in a lot of these courses that are part of this, the membership itself is fine, but some of the courses will have a term to participate as part of the bundle where you are required to give me feedback. And if you don't give me feedback, then I will remove your access, basically. I'm not going to like do anything else. I'm just going to like, if you're not giving me feedback, then I remove that from you. I do this for a very specific reason because I want to make it a better product. And so good feedback, bad feedback, whatever, it's huge. But also, once I have a good product, I'm putting it in front of companies. Companies are going to want to know, hey, who's this working for? They don't want to be first. Well, some of them, actually, I take that back. Some of them might, and I'm probably going to do some of this muddy boots style stuff for them in the next week or so. It is going to happen, but it's not going to be as attractive as this. This is going to be unique. So if you are part of a small business where you don't have a lot of staff, like maybe under 5, let me know, and I will actually give you access to this. But again, you will need to give me feedback as part of the process. It's going to be a requirement to get this kind of a deal. You will need to be giving me feedback. Okay. So I promised to do a little bit more for those of you that are in the end user computing space. I'm going to leave this link up at the top here, but I'm going to move on the words on the screen here. And I'm already going a lot later than I wanted to, but I want to make sure you get this. It's important. So if you are in the end user space, you're basically just your VDI, your application delivery, and off the top of my head, I can think of at least 6 different vendors that are involved in this. And a lot of you, again, voluntold, and you're said, we bought this thing. we bought this thing from VMware. We're not really sure what to do with it. It's for VI, which I guess is a thing with people's desktops, so they log in the cloud. You know, I'm being facetious on purpose here, but a lot of times that's what happens. Is like you're just told to do this, and maybe you're not skilled in that right away. You know, and so then you get in there and you find that you are inundated with all information about how to deploy it, and you deploy it, and everybody says, "Oh, hey, thanks for doing that," but it kind of sucks. Because a lot of times with the system documentation and all this kind of stuff, they're really good at telling you how to deploy their software. They're not very good at teaching you how to go through my methodology, where you're actually going through the understand process and going into this and really seeing, okay, what are the actual use cases, and how do I apply this within the realm of this technology or this way of operating, you know? And so that's a huge challenge for this type of scenario where you don't have the background experience to deploy any of those kind of softwares. And it literally doesn't matter which one it is. You know, Citrix is kind of the industry leader in this regards. And if that fluffs feathers, whatever, the numbers are the numbers, right? They're the OG. They're the ones that have been doing this the longest. And so they have very complex solutions, but that's a problem. They're complex solutions. So getting an easy deployment out of Citrix, good luck. It's not going to happen. Sorry, not sorry. I made a good career out of it not being simple, right? But the reality is there's things that are there that are that can be learned to do it in a way that makes sense, even if it's not simple. A lot of you are taking over these kind of things without knowledge. If you've been in this scenario where somebody is laid off, and they just kind of the new things just come right into your lap, or maybe somebody is terminated, which in the workshop I was doing last week, and you have access to a replay. That is something where you see that a lot in that regard too, where you'll see the you're just basically taking it over, and it's already in place, and so now all of a sudden you're the one having to deal with the drama, and you're not really confident about how it all should work together. And you know what? People complain, and you don't know what they're talking about, much less what to do about it. It happens, right? A lot of times in my surveys, I'll hear this one too. People think that they're too old to learn new things. And really what it is is that they're not too old to learn something. It's just that the challenge of it is huge because they don't understand, they haven't made a connection in their head about what it is. And that's actually the challenge. It has nothing to do with your age. It has everything to do with the fact that it's something where it's just like, you don't care. And why should you? If it's not making a connection with what you know through your years of experience, you know the business needs to be doing one thing, and that is making money, right? And so you're spending something on a new toy. If it's just a new toy, what's the freaking point? Most of us that are experienced in the industry, we know this, right? So a lot of times, what I'm finding out there is what they'll do is they'll go to a boot camp, or your work will send you to a boot camp, and you end up, okay, so I'm at a boot camp. But they also want you to still do all your trouble tickets, and they also want you to attend all the meetings, and they also want you to do all these things. In the meantime, this happens all the time. I've witnessed it, like doing this as far as like doing these boot camps. Like I've seen people like not succeed in that boot camp. You know, I took their money and everything like that, but it's like one of those things where it's like they had no ability to succeed because they were inundated. They were always on the phone out in the hallway. I want to not have that a thing anymore. Sometimes you're getting asked, like, what should we do here as a strategy? And you have no idea how to evaluate these, and you're not really sure where to start. By the way, this is actually the best position to be in of any of these. This is absolutely the best way to get the right thing in place, because there's little nuances with all these different softwares, little things that some do better, some do worse, some do differently that might, like say, for example, if you're on premises or you're on cloud, there might be solutions that work differently and more effectively in those scenarios. And so it's good to know that. And so if you're in a place where you're being asked to recommend one, this is a key thing. And my goal is to have that something where we have this. And so the title of this is probably going to change, but just because I already wrote Be a Hero, I figure we'll make this be an EUC hero and end user computing hero, and really just call this kind of phase one, like the foundations of application delivery. And so basically we're learning, why we do this before we do the how. And we're not getting into the whole how the technologies all work necessarily, as much as we are getting into here's how to run this methodology that is award-winning, awesome methodology, my methodology, into these kind of ways. So you do why before how with understand, plan, change, maintain. It's huge. So learning how to actually define these success criteria so you can actually make the right decisions, whether or not you're already locked into a vendor solution or not. The best thing somebody can do when they're faced with, inheriting an environment or needing to deploy something and they can't make the choice of which technology it is to have these success criteria laid out. And so you can actually figure out how to make things successful around that. It's huge. Getting to know users' needs. It's called end user computing. Without knowing what the end user needs, all you have is computing. So, dramatic pause. You need to get into how these work, how they relate to the business. So you need to know also some things on the background. Your compute layer, your storage layer, your operating system layer. All these kind of things are complex. They interact with each other. And without the right tunings and the right way to do those, you're going to be stuck, or you're going to deploy something that's kind of just default, and default kind of sucks. So regardless of what technology it is, there's always some kind of tunings you need to do or considerations you need to know. And so the other part about this, it's going to be kind of unique because I'm not associated with a vendor, actually get into this notion of saying, what if you had one part of the organization that's just using AWS or Amazon Workspaces? And what if the rest of the organization is using Citrix? Or what if you have just like mixing solutions? Or what if you're working with, like, say, for example, a login VSI to do things? Or what if you're working with like Liquidware and some of their solutions, or ControlUp, or how to integrate these and how to work with all these multiple vendors in all these different ways in end user computing, because there are a ton of them. So if you haven't chosen one yet, you can kind of learn how to select these appropriately, not just based on who has the better sales staff. But it's because I'm not associated with a vendor, because I'm not a vendor course, I have more flexibility to do that, which is awesome. And then you have all these leading practices industry-wide. Obviously, I talked about it earlier, but honestly, the whole concept here, how we're combating the boot camp methodology, saying, let's just do this in a week. I want to have things where you can do this on your terms. And just to say this, there will be some abilities to have kind of cohorts within these courses. But right now, it really is just going to be focused on having bite-sized lessons that you can complete at your own pace and understand the stuff while you're doing all your other stuff and not having it conflict. And I'll probably have some other lessons on how to work with your management. I'm actually going to be doing a series of videos that are specifically oriented towards managers to let them know how to work with you during the going of this course. Now, so how to help you be successful. It's something that I've never seen anyone else do, so I'm going to do it. There's lots more with this, obviously, because it's not been done yet, right? So the people that are getting in early are going to be, it's kind of insane, but it's true. So I want to let the people that are early adopters, I guess you could say, help me do this. So again, this is all kind of insane, quite a little bit ago. So I have all these courses, right? Well, I'm going to add in the founding member launch, if you will, of the Be an EUC Hero course. Now, what this means is not just the first iteration of this. To me, these kind of courses, I want you to have, I want my founders to be people that always get the upgrades. Again, this is silly to do. That's why I don't do this very often. It's just like when it comes to a level like this. In fact, this is something I'm not going to be offering to companies. It's only to individuals that I'm offering this to, and so I'll be watching that carefully, I guess you could say. So the idea here is that for pricing out there in the world, this will be a $5,000 course. In fact, I think it'll probably end up being something that evolves into multiple different courses at about the same level. So this entry level course of understanding this and kind of applying the methodology and working with various vendors and figuring out the underlying leading practices that you need to know to be successful, no matter where you take this in your career. A lot of people that I know will start off on like Citrix, for example, and end up somewhere else. Well, do they have to learn that all this stuff now? They have to learn a whole new methodology? Well, guess what? Yeah, they do. Unless they took lessons from what they learned about that deployment and put it elsewhere. And that's what I want you to do. That's what I want people to have access to doing. And so this is what the price of that's going to be. So that's a total, if you're keeping track or doing the math quickly, I did it for you, of at least $11,397. Yesterday, I could not get that out. It was so much. It was like, that's a lot of mortgage payments. So that's a lot of lattes. So $11,397 is the total value. So obviously I'm in that kind of insane kind of mood with this, right? So if you go to this page, what you're going to see is 4 options. Actually, I just added another one that's not on the slide deck here yet, because I just added it last night. So the Backstage VIP founding member launch. And by the way, Backstage VIP is just the name right now. It'll probably have a different name later. We'll figure that out. That's part of the Buddy Boost, right? But that whole bundle, everything with that is $6,398 value. That is one payment of $499, or I do have an option on the site now to split that up into 3 different payments. I believe of $170, something like that, or so. Top of my head, I can't remember what it was. One of those crazy late night things that I do. Anyway, so one payment of $499, you're done, right? That's lifetime access to all of those materials. Or there's an upgrade to combine that with this new EUC Hero course. So instead of that being that big, huge number, I didn't even calculate what a percentage this is. But if you invest with me right now, $999, then you will get access to all of this. Or you can split this up into 3 payments of $349. You'll get access to all of this. Now, if you have questions, let me know. Just to run through this really quick. Honestly, we got some weird things going on with the economy right now. It's strange. And it's not going to get any better. It's just not. And so I wanted to offer something, an opportunity for people to invest in themselves now so they can make more money. They can do things and not have that, constant monthly kind of thing going on. This is an opportunity. So for those of you that are brave enough to do it, here you go. Same thing with a focus on this. Like I said earlier, I'm not going to be offering these kind of things. I haven't done anything like this in 5 years. So it's not something I do commonly. It just wouldn't make sense, right? So, but also I'm going to be focusing really on offering these to companies, which means all the prices have to go up, because dealing with companies instead of individuals is much more expensive process. There's a lot of things that come into this, like adding in things that I'm going to be adding into the courses and things like that in general, like third-party certification of completion, just general certificates of completion for like continuing education credits. There's all these things that I'm going to need to be offering, and it was between either keeping them separate, like having a personal offering and a corporate offering, or just having an offering. And I chose to go with just having the offering, because honestly, that's just the way I'm going to have to do it. I don't want to have to manage all these different things. It's just not going to be a reality. And so this is your opportunity to get in while you can on this kind of actually not even on this pricing. That's a different story altogether. This is like not even that kind of thing. But also, I want action takers. I want people that are going to lean into this and say, okay, let's go. Let's do this right now. Again, when it comes to launching this community, these are the kind of people that I want at the foundation of a community. I don't want people that are just looking for what's in it for them. I want action takers that are looking to advance their own careers and advance everyone else's around them while they do it. I want community. So if that's you, get in as a founding member right now. Just go. I want your feedback. Again, there's an old saying that the people that pay attention. And I think it's true. It's been true in my life. I know that I've been offered a lot of things, free things like replays that I never look at. But if I'm paying for something, even if I just paid one time for it, like my gym, I go back. I go pump iron because you know what? I invested in this. I'm getting better. That's what I want. So I want these people from feedback that are really truly invested. But also, like I said, the testimonials, the reviews, these are things that are really important. But the feedback is good for getting the products better. And so that's all worth it. And so those recommendations, is it worth having a huge discount to get those? Yeah. I want to blow you away. I want you to have so much value out of this. You're like, wow, for about my car payment, I just took care of myself for a lifetime. That's amazing. I want that. I want you to have that kind of thing where you can brag about. I don't want you to brag about it, but I want you to be willing to be part of this for life. To say that let's grow this together. And so whatever comes in the future, we're growing together. That's all worth it. So those kind of recommendations, you'll bring people along, right? You'll want to have people involved. Say, you know what, I've got this thing. Do I bring people to my gym all the time? Yeah, I do. I want them to be involved too. I want to see them there. I don't want to see just a bunch of meatheads. It's not always like that, but it does happen. So anyway, that's why I want you to get involved with this and get into this right now. So one more time, just the full package here. Here it is. This is me laying it all out there for the next 4 days until Friday. This is what it is. And it's never going to get better than this. Trust me. I did something like this in 2018 that was pretty good, but it wasn't as good. So I have this pain in my shoulder right here, not from working out. It's from stressing out about this. But I feel really good about it. I feel really good about making this offer because I know that I'll have people in my life that are just like me and my gym. So let's go. Get in here, thrive-it.com/4DFC23. Go to that QR code that's on your screen still and join me inside. All right. Well, I hope today was good for you. I hope it was both edifying and serving. I hope that you were able to get some value out of the first 45 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever it was, out of looking at career paths. Feel free to reference back to this. I'll probably leave this up in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, I need to edit out the portions of this 4-day thing because it's not going to apply. But I will do my best to leave the videos up if I can, or they'll just be up and this it'll be a wondering DJ. Hey, it's November. Can I still get in? No. Past October 6th, this is gone. So I know that makes for drama, but hey, I'd rather you ask. But what I'd rather you do is get in right now and not worry about it. I'd rather you just take that investment into yourself. I see people investing in. I know people that have invested more in a keyboard. Honestly, this is one of those things where it's just like, I don't want to spend money on this. This is career stuff. Trust me. If it takes off that time frame that you need to be successful, if it gives you a path towards success, ask me in my life if that's been worth it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Investing in programs that help me as a professional, even as an entrepreneur, even especially, I've invested tens of thousands of dollars in this. Have I seen the benefits of this? Yeah. Yeah, I have. Yeah, these things work, right? So, you think I'm coming up with these strategies? No, these are all things that are recommended to me. This is not something I'm not innovating here. I'm emulating, and that's what I want you to do. I want you to be part of a community that's able to help you grow. And it's one of those things. This is stupid cheap to be part of this. In the long term, which is what we're talking about here. We're not talking about like something that's only for this month. We're talking about a lifetime of access. Yeah. Okay. This is crazy. That's why we're only doing it for this week. So there you go. All right. So if you have any questions, let me know. I will be online tomorrow. I'll be online Thursday, and I'll be online again Friday. The same time, I'll be here. So if you have questions, that's what I'm here for. I want to make sure you're successful. I'm invested in this. This is my way of not only this is more than just giving back. This is me asserting that leadership of making sure that we are uh, fully engaged. So I hope to see you in there. And if you want to recommend this to someone that didn't see this video, go for it. Go for it. As long as they get in on before the 6th, let's do it. If you're a small company, like I said, there's a couple of caveats here, but by and large, just go for it. Just put in that credit card. You're good to go. Yeah, it's a credit card to me as far as the system goes. So go for it. But the 6th, it's gone. So, but I'm not. I'll be still around. I'll be still doing all this kind of stuff. This is obviously, my direction. This is what I feel passionate and called to be able to be doing with you right now. I want to be pouring into people's lives, and this is my way of doing that. And still, supporting myself. If anybody else is an entrepreneur out there, you know that October 15th is not a good day. That's corporate tax day. That's when all the extensions have to be called in, and you have to file and pay all your taxes. It's coming up for me too. So it's like one of those things. Like there's elements of this that are important for me in that regards, but it really has more to do with like getting people that are giving me feedback and getting the right things in place. So hope to see you in there. Again, my name is DJ Eshelman, and I am out of here.